Aloha, I'm State Representative Bob McDermott, and I am back with one of my favorite teachers in the whole state of Hawaii, superstar at Campbell High School. Met him about 4 years ago, just cares tremendously about children and is sharp as a tack. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mike Wooten. Mike, how you doing?
Thanks for having me, Representative.
You know, those comments are heartfelt. You first came as a Teach for America.
I did.
And you got credentialed. We talked about that last time.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're going to talk about heat.
Sure, absolutely. It's
air conditioning.
Huge issue.
You're out at Campbell. You're in the belly of the beast, man. You're in the furnace. But you know, when I met you first time with the Teach for America folks, you guys were all so bright, young, and enthusiastic and bright, and man, we're going to change the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you have stayed to try and change the world. You went on to get credentialed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've stayed at Campbell, so thank you very much. And I met your lovely wife prior to us coming on here, so that's great. How does the heat affect kids out there?
It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal on Hawaii students. I think statewide that it has dramatic effects on our statewide performance and our national rankings when you look at student achievement. I think not only is it brutal academically, I think it sends the wrong message to students as well about how we value them and about how we value their education. So just from my personal experience, I know walking in the classroom, there were just mornings where I would just walk in my room and opening the door, I could feel already that it was just going to be stifling hot.
It stays hot overnight? Because a lot of those buildings, so
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the buildings at Campbell,
Mm-hmm.
because Campbell High School is the largest high school in the state.
Mm-hmm.
It is a college campus, 3,000 students, right?
Right.
It's huge. It was built in the early mid-'60s, I do believe, and they were building them fast and cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cinder block,
Mm-hmm.
right? 3-story cinder block construction, those buildings that aren't portables. And the cinder block retains the heat throughout the day,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It not only retains it, but it stacks it also. So I had a class on the third floor of one of the cinder block buildings, and you could feel the heat kind of emanate all the way through the building. So on the third floor, if it was a day without a breeze, it could be absolutely brutal in there.
It's an oven.
Yeah, it could get up to 100 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
At that point, you're just struggling to survive, to get any material that you can out to the students, and you're hoping
They
that
don't
something
care.
comes. It's really hard to make them care at that point. It's hard to make them see that you care about them at that point. You know, when you're asking them to stay in that type of environment, it's like you keep asking them. It feels like a slave driving position at that point, because you're asking them to go against their physiology. Physiologically, they're students. They are maturing and they are breaking down physically at that moment, and you're having to tell them, pay attention, sit up, you know, get your head off your desk, that type of stuff, and it feels punitive when it shouldn't be at all.
Okay, have you ever been up one of those classrooms? It was so hot. You said,
Mm-hmm.
all right, I'm going to make a deal with you. We'll go outside,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to behave.
I've tried that, and there's studies that experiment with education outside, and they find that it's really too distracting for students when you're talking about academic subjects. If you're teaching something, you know, with outdoors and teaching about trees and plants and stuff like that, that would be the best learning environment for it. But teaching about English, it's really not. It does become distracting. I used to do that a little bit more when I taught up at Wailua on the North Shore, and there were shade trees outside that we could go underneath. Especially during independent reading time, I'd let the students go outside and read, and if they became disruptive, I'd have them go back inside. That was helpful.
Yeah, I recall feeling when you're 16, 17, some cases 18, some cases 19, you feel like a prisoner, you know, when you're on the campus.
Mm-hmm.
That heat, as a professional,
Mm-hmm.
when you're up there teaching kids, because I taught college classes, and you're performing.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving of yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And you're putting it all out there, trying to hope that they retain some nugget of information. Mm-hmm. And so how is that? I've never had to do it in 100-degree heat. How is that for 8 hours?
Well, I can kind of
Do
pull
you need to
through.
work out after that?
Sometimes not so much. I was in the military, so having military experience, I was put through some extreme environmental conditions and, kept there for extended periods of time that really bend and test your limits and where you can go physically. So I kind of brought that experience into the classroom with me, and I felt like my endurance was a little bit high.
Oh, you're a ranger or
I was in the
infantry?
82nd Airborne.
Okay, so you're an airborne paratrooper.
I was.
That's not every high school student.
It's
though.
not. But you're right about the performance thing. It did feel, with teaching sometimes, there are those days when it's project-based learning and students are learning on their own. There's certain days when you have to lecture and you try and make it as animated as possible, and you are on. You're trying to look at every eye, make sure that everybody's paying attention, meet everybody's needs, really respond to everybody's questions. And I could feel there were those days where I could just feel sweat dripping down my back as I was talking to the students, and I would just try and keep as positive an expression as I could because I wanted to be an example to the class and kind of just keep their spirits up as much as I could.
I've read national studies, because Campbell's our school, that show that in standardized testing, the kids who took a test in an air-conditioned facility with a climate control did much better than the kids who took it in a hot box. And so when we take our children take SATs or ACTs or any of these other tests, they're not doing as well as their counterparts in Dubuque, Iowa or Illinois, wherever the hell it is, because they're in a controlled environment.
Absolutely, and you stack that performance year on top of year on top of year, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and you're going to see just a huge decline in their overall capabilities.
The older schools, and I've toured some on the neighbor islands, were built in such a way to maximize the trade winds. The old timers knew what they were doing: maximize the trade winds, plenty of ventilation, high roofs, which is not what we have at Campbell. It's a 8-foot roof, flat cinder block in those buildings, and then of course the heat, like you said, goes up and up and up. Those schools probably don't need to be air conditioned, and also it depends on where your school is, right? If you're up country, if you're at the higher elevations and you have breezes, it's comfortable. But we're right down on Coral Flats, if you will, right by the ocean, and I used to say that Campbell High School is so hot that it was like putting kids in ovens. And now the problem is magnified because we're overcrowded. And there's not enough ovens to put the kids in.
Absolutely.
Let alone, so you have a two-pronged problem over there. You have overcrowding, horrific overcrowding, and heat. Now, how does the overcrowding of a classroom, what is the ideal classroom size? And then what are some of the larger classrooms students you've seen?
So classroom size can be affected by a couple of factors, and one factor that kind of affects classroom size at Campbell is our block scheduling. So we do block scheduling where we have 4 periods for 85 minutes a day, and we teach the same 4 periods every single day of the week for the entire semester.
85-minute class?
Yes. So that's a really long time period.
So you take a break in the middle of that, right?
It depends on the class. There's no scheduled break in between that, no.
How can you keep a
The students-
15-year-old's attention for 85 minutes?
I agree. I think it's difficult. The reason we use block scheduling because it offers more opportunities for students to make up classes that they're missing credits on. So that actually increases our overall graduation rates in the long run. There is the question of how do you keep a student's attention for 85 minutes, and that's up to teachers to differentiate and try and figure out different ways of doing that. So some teachers are better than others at doing that, but the problem is that at 85 minutes in a 95 degree classroom, if somebody came and told the authorities that somebody was forcing their kid to stay in a 95 degree
the car
room,
with the windows rolled up.
exactly, the car with the windows rolled up, they would go to jail. But the state does it, and there's no repercussions. They say, well, we just don't have the budget to fix it. These are all issues of inequality that it's
a matter of priorities, and I think politicians like me should get out of it. I think the DOE, if they went by their matrix on top priorities of capacity and cooling and all those things, Campbell would have been taken care of already. But what happens is the politicians down here, I'm at XYZ High School, I want a performing arts center, or I want a new wrestling room. Well, those things cumulatively take construction money away from your real need. They're all nice to have. Wrestling room is fantastic. I grew up in a high school that had a wrestling room. And padded walls, padded water fountains, it's, really a sense of pride. But it costs money. So what is your priority? Is it a wrestling room or is it English literature? Well, the basics have to take priority, clearly. Right?
Well, there's also a question of how much psychological energy, psychic power do we put behind solving some of these problems? And right now, I'm really happy to see the shift, towards heat abatement right now, and the priority being placed on heat abatement. But for years previous to this, I've been saying, Corey Rosenlee especially was the real pioneer in advocating for better conditions for students in schools. He's been saying for years and years that this is a gigantic problem, and it just basically got ignored by anybody that would take a call from him. So
yeah, he deserves a tip of our hat. So Corey, if you're out there listening, tip of the hat. You were the pioneer, as Mike said, on the heat abatement. And I know for a fact, Mike, he took a lot of slings and arrows for that. He ruffled feathers in even the HSTA leadership. We're telling him, hey, back off. We gotta, because he was loading up the buses, bringing kids down here. He wasn't checking with anybody. He was creating news. And now he's still creating news.
He is. It's that advocacy for kids that made him the HSTA president, because his number one priority is advocating for the students of Hawaii. It's not. I know a lot of times HSTA gets pegged as a labor organization with teacher interest. He views teacher interest aligned with student interest, and his number one priority is students and their health and their welfare. Yeah,
he has been a tremendous advocate. His passion is undeniable, and it took me a while to win him over because I'm a Republican.
Right.
And I first met him, and it was like,
makes a lot of people suspicious.
But then when he come down here, he said, "Hey, can you help me? Can you reserve the thing for me?" I said, "Sure." Well, you were there the one time, and what else do you need? And so we were very responsive to his needs, as we are to everyone. If you called and asked for something, oh, that's Mike, let's take care of him. People from our community are our bosses, and we really believe that. Just like you believe the student is your customer, and you're giving your customer, the parent, I suppose, is the customer as well. How do you view that? Is the parent the customer or is the student? Student's the receiver, but
quite honestly, the role I try and take in my classroom is a parental role. It's a very parental role. Our students spend so much time away from their parents, and right now there's a huge kind of a shift where I hear a lot of teachers talk about, oh, it's the parents' fault. The parents aren't teaching them values at school, or aren't teaching them values at home anymore. But then we're legally forcing the parents to give up custody of their kids and to be in this institution for a large block of their time. And parents are busy with the current state of the economy. They have to work, sometimes several jobs. And so there is a vacuum of leadership. There's a vacuum of parenting that's created. And my philosophy is really, when a student walks into my classroom, I am their parent. And I'm going to educate them like one, I'm going to love them like one, and I'm going to try and guide them in the way of morals and values and respect, just like a parent would.
Well, as a parent with 8 children, I feel that it's incumbent upon me to send my kids to you, my children to you, with these basic sense of decency and how to treat other people, and a moral integrity, and when I get a call, and I do, from Campbell High School, that I just want to tell you Brennan didn't do his assignment, I said, okay, I got you, I got your back, I'm with you. I tell you what, so well, what are we going to do about it? And we collaborate. I said, okay, let me tell you something that Brennan really likes. Brennan boxes. So you tell him that you talked to his father, and his father said he's not going to go to boxing practice if he doesn't get this assignment in.
Mhm.
Now he knows you were talking to Dad, and he knows Dad's got your back. And so my attitude when a teacher calls is probably opposite of what you get sometimes. Well, my kid is perfect. It's you who's messed up, or why did Johnny fail? I know that you guys are doing the best you can.
Mm-hmm. That's fairly rare, actually. I would say the vast majority of parents are extremely receptive and very, very helpful. There are few exceptions, but almost all parents have good intentions for their kids,
Of course.
and want them to be raised up in well-meaning ways. And sometimes that's difficult economically for parents to be there for their kids. And with schools that increasingly take up the mantra, I'm not their parents, I'm not their parents. So we've created this vacuum where the schools no longer feel it's their job to teach morals and values and levels of respect to the kids in a very kind of this way that kind of takes them under the wing and really mentors them. Everything is punitive now. Do this or else this. So we've got these punitive lines set up. It's very legalistic, but we have very little time to mentor the students in the way that really brings them up. Hillary Clinton wrote the book, It Takes a Village, and it does take a village, and it takes us.
We have to disagree there, right?
It takes the education system that they're going to be immersed in for 5-6 hours a day, making an effort to also bring them up in the right way in order to really do that, especially in the vacuum.
Government is forcing you guys to do more.
Mm-hmm.
We down here are forcing you to be more of a parent. My view is I send my children to you. I do have them after school, and I have them all day Saturday and Sunday, and then during the summertime. And as they're becoming young adults, that starts from when they're little, those values that are inculcated from Mom and Dad.
I'd say that actually the policies are coming down are forcing us to be more of the students' statisticians and less of their parents. We're actually missing more of those interpersonal contacts. Oh yeah, we're inundated with meetings all the time. Everything's data-driven all the time now. Everything's core-based. Like my schedule is stacked every single day. I have meetings in the afternoon on Monday. I have meetings during the day during my free period on Tuesday, meetings on Wednesday, meetings on Thursday, meetings on Friday. I have meetings stacked all the way across. I have very little time to meet students outside of class. When I do have time to tutor students, it's not until like 45 minutes after school has gotten out and the student has been out for 30, 45 minutes before I actually have time to see them. So by that point, the student's already gone home, or they've gone to work, or whatever they need to do. So actually, my ability to be there for my students has been constricted more than anything else.
Does the heat? Let's get back to the heat. Although I love freewheeling discussions with you, because you're a different generation. You are fully at least one generation removed from me. I have a different perspective than you. I mean, I actually got paddled in high school. They don't use the paddle anymore, do they?
Oh, absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. No paddling. It was a big paddle.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily the best way. I don't think that's necessarily the best way.
Got my attention.
I'm sure it got your attention. I think that there's a lot of things that we can do in non-punitive ways. Redirection works better than threats most of the time. When I have
wasn't a threat, it was an actual paddle.
Right. I'm sure.
But it was, I was a junior high school and I got in 3 fights. At the third fight, they paddled me and sent me home for 3 days, suspension. But the paddle to a young boy, junior high school, that's a badge of courage. It hurts. But I got the paddle.
Oh, I got paddled. It wasn't a badge of courage when I got paddled. I was fairly ashamed of it. But
I don't think you're an intellectual.
And I don't think that physical pain is the end all be all to the universe. The universe is going to collapse because there's physical pain. But at the same time, I don't think it's the right message to be sending students. That any type of physical threat is the right anecdote to them not caring about their educational quality, because not caring about that has a much more, it has a cultural root, and it has a value root inside of them much more than it is just an action they're committing.
If you gave me a choice, after school detention or Saturday morning detention or the paddle, I'd take the paddle all day long because it's 30 seconds and it's done. Anyway, does the heat cause? This could be a two-pronged thing. Does the heat cause the students, and I'm thinking particularly young ladies, to dress different? And if they're dressing showing more skin, obviously the boy isn't thinking about Shakespeare when you're talking to him, when the girls are next to him and they're trying to cool off and they're or just you have uniforms. Everybody got to wear a t-shirt.
We do have uniforms. There's definitely, you know, students that don't go by the uniform. There's teachers that don't enforce the uniform. Especially, it's hard to enforce the uniform when
it's a t-shirt.
You see that they're walking in wearing something that's appropriate for the heat, and then you're asking them to put on something that is inappropriate for the heat.
But
as
the
far as
uniform is a
wearing
t-shirt.
suggestives, it is a t-shirt.
How can it not be enforced?
There's well, it's not enforced in the open areas of the school. It's only enforced within the classrooms. So that creates a situation. They take it off as soon as they leave the room. It creates a situation where it makes the teachers the enemy of the student. Because if the student comes in and they have been told that they have to wear the uniform everywhere by the administration, then it's the administration's policy that I'm enforcing. When the administration doesn't enforce a policy and they come into my room and then I say, you need to do this, all of a sudden it's my policy that I'm enforcing. So that's, you know, the way a student is viewing it. Luckily, you know, by banding together and having more teachers enforce the uniform policy, we've been kind of able to steer that away a little bit from a teacher-student point of contention. But it does, when administrations don't support policies like uniform, when they say we're going to have a policy but then they don't enforce it, and they don't help teachers enforce it, then it does create a vacuum that creates negative relationships between teachers and students.
What are their reactions to, they say, it's hot, doesn't anybody care about us? You know, and they talk to you and you say, well, we're doing the best we can, and that's not good enough. What is their reaction as young people?
Honestly, they don't feel cared for. They don't feel like their education means a whole lot to people on the outside sometimes. They feel like they're just going through the motions, that okay, you want me to jump through all these hoops, but really if you wanted me to be college ready, wouldn't you provide me an adequate learning environment? Seriously, if you had that goal, wouldn't you provide that? So I talk to my students a lot about social justice and how the system has just been kind of set up, especially for public school students in Hawaii, set up to fail. It was established by the plantation owners that fought against using property taxes for the schools because they would end up paying the most, and educating kids would advantage them the least because they would lose their workers, and they viewed public education as a threat. So they invested heavily in the private school system, which is what we have. We have a very well-developed private school system here in Hawaii, where 22% of our students go to private schools, the highest in the nation, and then we leave our public schools underfunded. That's exactly the way it was in the plantation system. That is a system of segregated social injustice.
Our schools are underfunded. I would listen to some of my colleagues, even myself back years ago, would say, hey, we spend $16,000 a student and Arkansas only spends $13,000 a student. Why do they have better test scores? But what you don't take into account is that's what the state spends. But then the county, let's say of Little Rock, then puts in another 10 on top of that per student.
Right.
So our municipalities or counties contribute nothing to the state share. So it's the state share and that's it. The GET provides an equity, if you got 3 minutes, an equity, if you will, for the neighbor islands when they were particularly poor. So there's equality, there should be equality of funding theoretically, but there's not.
No.
It's all haphazard, a patchwork of who's got political juice and DOE matrix mixed in, and you get a patchwork that is not consistent. In the mainland, after 30 years, they build a new high school. They tear the old one down and build a new one.
There's a lot of things that contribute to that. Before, I know we're running low on time, so I'd like to just talk a little bit about the Fahrenheit 73 project that
Sure,
actually,
yeah, please.
you know, that brought in air conditioning to our school, and it was really great. What happened was there is a new program on the island that identifies young student leaders at different schools and allows and enables those students. They go through a leadership program that enables them to initiate their own projects. And so the project that brought air conditioning to my classroom in particular was a project called Fahrenheit 73, started by a Punahou student by the name of Allie. And there was also a few other students involved, Unica, Chrissy, and Kenneth, I believe, as well. And they fundraised and found $20,000 from donors all over the island, including the Campbell Alumni Foundation. They were significant donors that managed to bring a solar air conditioning into my classroom. And that has revolutionized the way that my students are able to pay attention.
Really?
It's revolutionized, absolutely, the behavior in my classroom. I used to have, you know, they do mowing during the class day. During the school day. So I would have grass and dirt thrown in my room. I would have wasps fly in my room.
This is bad.
So yeah, there's more problems than just heat that come with open air classrooms. Right. And it's enabled me to use my projector. I could not use my projector because I couldn't close all the windows in order to shut out the light. So now I'm able to use more tools for teaching. So the effects that, you know, people like Fahrenheit 73 and programs like Fahrenheit 73 have on individual classrooms are widely felt, and I think will have future ramifications on all students. And I want, you know, the Department of Education to make that type of commitment to our students as well.
Well, Mike, we have we have money to get Campbell taken care of, and it's a matter of will at this point. We got about 30 seconds left. Do you want to say any parting words to our folks?
I just want to thank Fahrenheit 73 and all the students and donors that were part of that program. It really is what Hawaii needs and what Hawaii students deserve. Thank you.
Well, this has been another edition of McDermott's Message here with Mike Wooten, a superstar at Campbell High School. And you heard it firsthand, we need to cool those classrooms. So that's what we're going to be fighting next session. I'm Bob McDermott. Until we meet again, hui ho. Aloha.